This is Ted Shire at Jet Radio, a show dedicated to community service as a means of sustainability. And today, my guest is Kary Oberbrunner, and Kary is a successful author and coach, and his books include Your Secret Name, Deeper Path, and Day Job to Dream Job. And after a few introductory remarks, Kary will introduce his work and a little bit about his life, and then we'll be off for the Q&A. So before we start, let's get into a few intro remarks for sustainability. Sustainability can be defined in terms of everyone doing their part to better the community, and we define it that way because that's what it takes in order to achieve lasting sustainability. And the more people get involved in the community, the more sustainable it will be. It's designed to work best that way. And so really, sustainability in many ways is about supporting each other and our different roles in the community. And that's why I get excited about other people's contributions. Also, sustainability is becoming increasingly relevant because the world is becoming less sustainable. And in most governments, social programs are not the ideal means of addressing community sustainability issues. However, people-to-people assistance is a much longer-term solution because it builds the type of community needed for lasting change. And so a lot of this material is referred to in Everyone Needs Sustainability, a book that I authored concerning the different types of sustainability, personal, financial, community, and environmental, and how they interact. And so this week's focus is vocational sustainability, and that is an area of Kary's expertise. And so I want to introduce the importance of Kary's work to sustainability at some point. But first, just want to get the call-in number and then have Kary tell us a little bit about himself and his work. Call-in number is 515-244-0077. But Kary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Sure, Ted. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thanks for all you're doing to just help the world be a better place. And yeah, my passion is to ignite souls. So I believe that when people are on fire, when they're connected to their core, their creator and their community, amazing things can happen. And I think we were each really put on this earth with three questions: who am I, why am I here, and where am I going? And when we get alignment on those questions and we begin to find the answers, I think that we become massive contributors. And I know, Ted, that was my own story. I was a guy who struggled as a young man with depression, with some tendencies towards self-destruction. And as I found the answers to those questions through my own pursuits, exploration, my faith, I have been able to really help a lot of other people. And so that's my passion.
Yeah. Was it a series of breakthroughs, or was there a major breakthrough? How do you describe that process?
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of us start out where we want progress. I think as humans, we want to accomplish and achieve. And when we feel stuck, we can get on a pretty destructive story. And that story is, the universe is against me, I'm not lucky, all these things that we begin to tell ourselves. And sure enough, I was stuck in that thinking pattern that it's the world against me. It's really a victim mentality. And I'm not saying that people haven't gone through troubles. I think we all have. But when you embrace a victim mindset, which says that you walk around, and I call it, you lie in bed, you blame, you create excuses, and you live in denial. And Ted, that was my story. And what helped me get over that was to realize that, you know what, I need to take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for my own life. I knew suicide wasn't the answer, and as a result, I had to work this thing out. A lot of my healing actually came through a very authentic relationship with God, where I felt like, you know what, I can express anger, dissatisfaction, frustration, and He can handle it. And so that was a big step forward for me. Before that, I felt like I was alone in the world, and that's not a good place to be.
Right. And so was in that relationship with God, was that something that also occurred in kind of a stepwise fashion, or was there a big breakthrough there?
Yeah, I don't know where everybody's background is, but for me, I grew up with the scriptures, and there was a certain passage of scripture that really set me free. Basically, David, a lot of people know King David, the psalmist. Everyone puts him up on a pedestal, which, he did a bunch of great things, and even the scriptures do. They say, here is a guy who is a man after God's own heart. But I'll tell you what, the passages that freed me up were these crazy passages where David is ticked off. They call it the imprecatory Psalms, where David is fired up, he's mad, he's upset, he's angry. And in that, Ted, I thought, wow, there's hope for me. Because up until then, I thought, you got to be perfect, you got to be, always saying the right thing. And I found real freedom in that authenticity that I found in those scripture verses. So I actually began writing my own psalms, and I began to be authentic with that, and that's where the healing came.
Yeah. So if you go through a period, a dry spell, I've heard some teachers say expect to go through dry spells throughout life. They come and go, and sometimes there's a long night in the soul, so to speak. And so in your work, what do you recommend for those dry spells during the time and then coming out of those?
Sure. I really believe that dry spells are not only normal, I think that they're a sign of future growth. So a lot of people want this stress-free, pain-free existence, but in reality, like anything in nature, when you look at it, without stress, struggle, striving, we know that things basically remain the same. And as humans, we were meant to grow. We were meant to progress. I have 3 young kids right now. I'm looking at them. They're stretching. They're growing. Their teeth are falling out. Why? Because that's how we were created, to progress. But with that, there's tension. There's growth. So when I'm in those situations, one thing I need to change immediately is my mindset. If I begin to say, woe is me, what's my problem, what's going on, who's the focus on? Focus is all on me. When I begin to say, you know what, I am in a dry spell. I call it the desert. I am in the desert. You look at any major superstar that we would hold up, like even yesterday, Martin Luther King Jr., we'd say, oh, wow, look at the guy. He's got a whole day devoted to himself now. Well, look at it. I mean, he went through tons of dry spells. This is the way it is. Diana Nyad failing 4 times when trying to cross the channel. This is what life is about. It's about us facing our own limitations and then realizing we need to grow into the person worthy of overcoming those obstacles. And that only happens through acute pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to be honest. I've been in a dry spell myself, and it's been painful. And you know what, though, there's hope coming in the sense of I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And I'm having physical struggles that compound the emotional pain, and it's just to the point where it's like, God, whether I've got a huge headache combined with emotional pain, whatever's going on. I think I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I'm going to give thanks for who you are and all the good things that you've done. It's a better path than staying stuck. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I say it like this, Ted. I say that, in fact, the whole coaching model background that I come from is that there is pain in life. Pain is inevitable. Misery is a choice. And so we have two options. We can live a life of chronic pain. That's slow, dull pain. It's always in the background, kind of like too many computer programs that are open. It slows your processor down as far as your brain, this type of thing. Many people choose to live in chronic pain. The only way we overcome chronic pain, physically, emotionally, spiritually, is to actually choose and pursue acute pain. So what does that mean on a practical level? It means this morning, Ted, well, first of all, last night I went to bed at 9:45. That's pretty early. But guess what? I was up at 4:30. Why was I up at 4:30? Because it was acute pain, and I knew that I needed to prepare a few things, including for this interview, also for some webinars I was doing. But then I went and I hit 40 minutes of pure physical pain with a bunch of other buddies of mine, and we sweat. We got the muscles going, all that stuff. It was acute pain, but as a result, I fought back heart disease. I fought back high cholesterol. I fought back all kinds of chronic pain because I chose that acute pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How do you balance that with the potential for burnout?
Yeah. So one of my goals last year, which is hilarious because it just is. I'm an achiever. I'm a producer. I like to be in it to win it. But I realized last year I kept cutting corners on my sleep. And so in 2014, one of my top goals was to sleep more. The brain is built, the body's built in a way that it needs sleep. And trust me, when I was going day job to dream job, for several years, I cut at least an hour, if not 2 or 3 at night. So you can imagine years of cutting an hour to 3 hours of sleep a night. Sure, I cranked out 5 books, but at the same point, your stress is higher, your fuse is shorter. And yeah, last year I made huge advances by sleeping extra. And here's the other thing I do, Ted. I say no. In fact, the fact that I'm on this interview is awesome because I wanted to serve you and your people. You're doing great things, but many, many times I get more opportunities than I know what to do with, just like all of us. They could even be small things. Will you serve on this committee? Will you go to this meeting? Will you help this thing? It's all good. I highly doubt anyone's getting bad invitations. But the point is, we're finite. And what I've decided to do is really understand the etymology of the word decide, and it comes from the same word as suicide, genocide, homicide, pesticide. It deals with death. When we as people decide something, that means we kill off the options for something else. Many people in their lives, they have way too many decision loops open. I might do it, I might not do it. I don't want to say no because I'll disappoint these people. And that compounded over time creates guilt, stress, and you leak your energy. So instead what I do is I very clearly have what's called an opus. And I know you know some of that from coaching, but that is a masterpiece that each one of us create. And we author our opus. And on that opus document, I have very clear boundaries of the 5 things I am called to do. And everything else is a no. And so all the time, every day, I'm saying no. And Ted, guess how many decisions the average person has to make a day?
How many?
70. So So roughly, I mean, these aren't like decisions like, should I use a blue pen or a red pen? These are like, pretty significant decisions. What should I order? What time should I get my kids? Decisions. So you can imagine if people are stuck with a decision-making ability, automatically their progress is slowed down, their stress is up, because every decision passes through this conscious struggle. Most of my decision-making is unconscious. It's pre-thinking. It's been done prior. So if someone comes up to me and says, oh, Kary, we got this really cool opportunity next week. You got to come. It's a subgroup. We're going to meet. We're going to bring in a speaker, and we want you to be on a panel, da-da-da-da-da. I can know in microseconds if that is a yes or a no. And if it's a no, I don't feel guilty because I say, you know what, great opportunity, love to do it, but I already have an activity scheduled at that time. They don't know it, but it's called my opus. So I don't need to feel guilty.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff, and it's helpful to me to hear that. I want to share a quote from your work, and then introduce how your work relates to sustainability. And sure. I know you may or may not want to respond to some of it, but I think some of it is directly relevant, sure. And probably will elicit at least some response. But a quote from Kary's work here: millions of people are squandering their talents and wasting their time in jobs they don't love. They feel trapped and dissatisfied, afraid to risk their financial security to pursue their dreams. But anyone can make the leap from day job to dream job with the right amount of knowledge, encouragement, and guts. And so just looked up some potential applications of that line of thinking in terms of the employment place and how that relates to sustainability. And looking at some productivity numbers, and actually this was in Kary's work as well. We might have got it from the same source, but according to Gallup, around 70% of workers are either disengaged, actively disengaged, or not engaged. Mm-hmm. And so that affects productivity, profits, engaged customers. If you take the reverse of that, if you take employees that are engaged, then you get greater productivity, you get greater profits, you get more engaged customers. And the breakdown there was from Gallup was 29% of the U.S. workforce is actively engaged, 55% is not engaged, and 16% is actively disengaged. So if 55% of all U.S. workers are not engaged, 16% are actively disengaged, then 71% of Americans who aren't engaged, if that were turned around, that is a huge growth opportunity for coaches such as Kary. And so I have to ask, do you think that it could actually be a much bigger return than the 71% due to synergizing factors?
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, the cost on sustainability, if we could turn those numbers around so that people would be actively engaged, the numbers would be astronomically better. They've done a financial project on what if we could turn those engagement numbers around, and the average was annually, this is just economically, not to mention other factors, $550 billion worth of lost productivity and therefore sustainability. So it's huge, which means that that's just financially. Let's talk about relationally, Ted. Relationally, Carl Jung, Swiss psychologist, looked at those disengagement numbers, and he did tons of research on kids, and he realized that the most damaging thing in the life of children is the disengaged parent, the unlived life of the parent. So you're speaking of financial, 70% sabotaging of sustainability. You're talking about relational sabotaging. Yeah, there's a big cost. Health, the stress, depression, burnout, all these factors from a physical standpoint and the physiological standpoint of people that are in the wrong spot and going every day to their, quote, day job prison. That's huge. So then that puts strain on healthcare and taxes. And so it's all related. It truly is. That's why my passion is I think, just off the charts for igniting souls. Because when we get that, there's this great quote by Annis Nin who says, we don't see things the way they are, we see things the way we are. So absolutely, if we are disengaged people, that affects every other aspect.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about that after a break. We need to go to a break right now, but after we come back, I want to go into that with a few follow-up questions and then continue with a few more potential research areas with this topic. Again, it's Kary Oberbrunner, successful author and coach.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Hi, welcome back to Jet Radio. This is Ted Shire, and my guest today is Kary Oberbrunner. He is the author of Day Job and Dream Job, and we're talking about the relevance of Kary's work to sustainability. And one of the areas that I wanted to explore a little bit more as we look at lost productivity in the workplace and how that can be a potential reservoir for savings, we can look in a couple different areas, and Kary alluded to these before the break. One is, as we said, lost productivity, lost healthcare costs. Those are both potential growth opportunities. and then the potential gain from fully satisfied workers. And when you have a group of people, all of them fully satisfied in their work, then the synergy that creates in terms of two being able to do more than either separately, that creates that synergism. And the more people that you have in that category, the more synergy there's going to be. So in terms of research, you could get those kind of numbers from organizations that have gone through a transformation like that. And I've heard of transformations like that at Will Creek Church, possibly Saddleback. They may have been up there on high ground for a long time. But Google, and then things like Best Place to Work lists places that have a thriving culture. And so you can figure out the whys for maximizing the productivity in a work environment. So in terms of how you could use that kind of information, perhaps companies could work together in order to create the best possible workplaces by exchanging employees. So if there's an employee in one place that is struggling, perhaps employers could work together to find that employee a better fit in a different place. And that does get a little bit complicated in terms of companies working together. But I wanted to ask, because the potential is so big, and because there are programs in existence such as International City County Management Association that do exchange programs like management talent exchange programs, you almost wonder if there couldn't be some modification that would help companies to do this on a more routine basis. So, Kary, I'm just curious, do you think that you could, I think your work is very relevant to this in terms of how you use your identity work and your identity diagnostics to help people get back on track and find a good job fit. Do you think you could use your work with companies to facilitate an employee exchange?
Yeah. One of the things we have absolutely free for your listeners is an assessment, and it's called the Igniting Souls Assessment, and you can find it just right at my URL, KaryOberbrunner.com. But when people take that assessment, they're able to find very quickly a customized report that helps them understand their situation. Are they understanding who they are? Are they functioning in their giftedness zone? These are very important things. And, I think a lot of times employers have major resources within their employees, but sometimes it's just a tweak. They're in the wrong spot. Jim Collins called it getting in the right seat on the bus. And I think sometimes it's an internal tweak, but I kind of like that thought, what you're talking about, employee exchange. I know today, many times these days, in fact, I just met a CPA who, rather than be at one large firm, he's actually a CPA for several companies, smaller, that can't afford a full-time CPA, but he kind of goes across, brings his best, and invests in several companies. I've also heard this with a legal aspect as well.
Yeah. What, from a coaching aspect, what would it take to help companies cooperate with each other in that way?
Yeah. Well, I think that we no longer have some of these barriers that were just so prevalent back in, a few decades ago, where I think we see our connectedness more. That's why I think it's good what you're doing. Back in the day, everyone was their own independent USS Microsoft or USS Baskin Robbins or whatever company you want to talk about. But today you see many more companies playing together, I think part of it is because of social media. That's some of it. But a lot of these barriers are down. You know, Michael Hyatt talks about how within hours, a few years back when he was CEO of Thomas Nelson, someone posted a picture on social media about a special Bible that they ordered, and it got all messed up on the way over shipping. And as CEO of the company, because of the flat world we now live in, he was able to fix that within hours, where a few decades ago, you couldn't have even tried to get to the CEO of a company to inform them of a problem. So that has strengths and weaknesses, the fact that all these barriers are brought down, but I think people are willing to talk more about these opportunities that you're suggesting.
Yeah, in your research for your books, did you come across anything that historically contributed to those barriers coming down?
I think part of it was, I mean, let's face it, globally. Back when I was a kid, I remember in sixth grade being told about, you know, the wall that was separating Germany, and you know, these physical walls came down in our generation, which represent much bigger walls, metaphorically and symbolically. So I think that the world as a whole, travel, look, flights. You know, it used to be we were light years away from Europe. Now we're a brief flight away. It's just funny because we can dial a phone. Just today, I did a webinar. People from the UK jumped in. It's the world in which we live. Technology helps. Some of the ideology helps. I think people are wanting. We're more connected. People realize if I pollute in my little corner of the world, it's now going to affect other people, and so I think we're just thinking more on a connected level.
Yeah,
years past.
Gotcha. Okay, so I want to transition into more of Kary's dedicated material in his books. And again, my guest today is Kary Oberbrunner, and he is the author of Day Job to Dream Job, Secret Path, and Secret Name and Deeper Path. But could you tell us a bit about the process that you take people through when you find them dissatisfied and confused about life and job direction?
Sure. So each of the three major brands that we have, your Secret Name, Deeper Path, and Day Job to Dream Job, they're all a journey and experience, but they're leading people to a different result. So your Secret Name is basically leading people to the result of image, identity. And as a result, in my research that I've done, we've discovered that self-image is essentially an internal set point. So you can take 10 people, and each one of them has a different self-image set point. And the ones who get the better results in life, the ones who tend to have better relationships, the ones who tend to think abundance versus scarcity, these are the people that have a higher self-image set point. So, for instance, you can have a young gal who struggles with anorexia, and you can put her in a room with all kinds of affirmation and all kinds of people complimenting her. Well, guess what happens? When she walks away from that environment, if her self-image set point is a 2, she's not going to perform at a 5, a 6, or a 7. In other words, we don't get what we want, we get who we are. And when we see ourselves as something who's a mistake, someone who's invaluable, doesn't have much to offer, that's the type of results we get. And so results are definitely tied to self-image. This is where it's the NFL playoffs recently. You can take 2 players that might have had a bad game, and one will say, you know what, that was a bad game, and I'm going to come back next season and we're going to dominate. I'm going to work hard in the off season. Another person will literally implode, and they'll take ownership of all the results. They'll self-destruct. Why? How can two people with the same results have different life stories? Well, it's because of their internal self-image set point. So what we do, Ted, is we take people on an inventory. We ask them to basically identify the names that they see themselves with. And so this inventory is great. Sometimes it's painful, but it helps them understand, kind of on a subconscious level, all the labels that have been floating around. And when we, first of all, can identify them, number one, they're no longer abstract. They're no longer floating out there in Neverland. We write them down, put them on paper, and we know that every name has a story, and every story has a wound. And until we're able to do the deep digging and healing with each wound, those names will always self-sabotage us. So that's the first step, identifying them.
Yeah. Is your main diagnostic for identity the come down to the abundance versus scarcity?
That's part of it. I think part of it is some of our names have been self-given. They've been things that we've said about ourselves. Even young kids that I have, they can assume just from a human nature, I'm not good at art. I'm not good at this. And they can begin to adopt that. But other times it's given by other people. They're in a classroom situation and an authority figure gives it to them, this type of thing. So yeah, sometimes it's an internal, sometimes it's external, but is it always abundance versus scarcity? Not always. I think another paradigm would be victim versus victor. That can be another paradigm.
Yeah. And is the basis of the victim versus victor what aspect of identity is at play there?
So a victim believes that the world happens to them. So they say things like, "You made me do this." They always look to the newspaper. I'm not saying newspapers are bad all the time, but they look to media and say, "What is government saying to me? What is Wall Street saying to me? What are all these things saying? And therefore, now how should I act?" So they take inventory of all the impulses, data around them and say, this is the world and it's happening to me. Now how should I act in response to that? It's not totally bad, but I'll tell you what. I know people who have been successful in the worst economies. I know people who have overcome with the worst situations. We all do. Why is that? Because they chose not to allow these impulses to dictate their destiny. Rather, they said, I happen to the world. So Oprah, for instance, when she was in a situation that said, no African-American woman can compete with Phil Donahue back in the day, she said, you know what? That might be what the world says, but that's not what I say. She overcame it. She said, I happen to the world. When she was told that no women talk show hosts could make it without scandalous content and gossip-oriented programming, she said, you know what? I happen to the world. So it truly, Ted, it truly does matter if we see ourselves as the world happening to us or us happening to the world. Like, do you remember Captain Sully?
Yeah.
With the Miracle on the Hudson? Oh, if he was a victim, he would have said, what is going on? These Canada geese just hit the plane. The engine just stopped. You know, he would have imploded. Instead, he said, you know what? I'm a glider pilot. I'm going to take my headphones off and not focus on tower control telling me to fly to LaGuardia. I'm going to land this thing. And he had a victor mentality where most people would have had a victim mentality.
Yeah. And did you make that transition yourself from?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Was that the driving force? Was that part of your journey, or just your journey, identity journey in general, the driving force behind Day Job to Dream Job?
Yeah, I think for me it was layers. So in other words, let's say I had a victim mentality with a part of my life. Some people do this all the time. You can be a victim in one area, but a victor in another. So some people say, you know what, I have bad genes, my mom's overweight, my family has diabetes, and I'm going to have it too. See, but then they might be crushing it with their finances and with their retirement. It's funny, but we are paradoxical like that. So I'm not saying that everyone's a victim in every aspect of their life, but for me, yes, I was a victim in certain parts of my life, probably each book. You know, Your Secret Name, I had to move from victim to victor in my identity, and then in my purpose with Deeper Path, and then in my job with Day Job to Dream Job. And each book I write is not written to, quote, sell a book. It's written for me to solve a problem that I'm struggling with personally. And many times the reader's brought into that journey, and by the end of the book, I found answers, they found answers, and it's a pretty powerful process.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you've shared your story. It's helped me a lot personally, so thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, it's time for another break. And again, my guest is Kary Oberbrunner, and he's a successful author of Day Job to Dream Job. And we'll be back to talk about Kary's 9-step process for moving from Day Job to Dream Job after a break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, welcome back to Jet Radio. I'm Ted Shire, your host, and with me today is Kary Oberbrunner, author of Day Job to Dream Job. And we're talking with Kary today about how his material applies to sustainability. And we left off talking about one of the first steps of Kary's 9-step process to go from a day job to a dream job. And that is to overcome self-limiting beliefs that sabotage success. And Kary is a coach with the John Maxwell team. And Kary, I was wondering if you could explain to us what a coach does.
Sure. So counselors and coaches are very different. Counselors focus on moving people in an area of dysfunctionality to functionality. It's often past focus. coaches focus on moving people from functionality to potentiality. And oftentimes they're focused on the future. And counseling tends to emphasize therapy. Coaching tends to emphasize questions and bringing people to new levels of awareness. So
Yeah.
it's been a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Why does that work?
Because many times the question is already within us. We just need permission to call it out. And many times a coach allows people to arrive at their own answers, but they need to be called out, and they need to be put in a position where the answer becomes clear, and we don't always have that clarity because of the noise inside our own head.
Yeah. So what do you think in terms of, when we hear something from a speaker, a counselor, a coach, and we go, and it brings an awareness, oh my gosh, I need to learn that, versus when we discover it for ourselves. Is one more impactful than the other?
I think so. I think when we're given the answer, we don't own it. We can take it or leave it. We can use it as a excuse if it doesn't work. Well, so-and-so told me to do that. But when we arrive at the answer ourselves via coaching, someone helping us, that type of thing, I think we own it then. And as a result, whenever you own something, you take better care of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is why nobody has ever washed a rental car, because they don't own it. You only take care of what you own, or at least you do at a much higher level. So yeah, when you own the answer, you'll steward it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how does that apply to taking care of ourselves as well?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, help me understand that better. I think it's a great question. Just help me understand it a little bit better.
Right. So does awareness, for instance, through a coaching process or self-awareness, help us to take better care, make us more aware, that we need to take care of ourselves, and then how to take care of ourselves?
I think so. I think. Look, this is so true. One of my clients the other day, he was told by everybody, his wife, his doctor, his kids, that he needed to take care of himself. He was overweight. It wasn't until he was on a walk and rolled his ankle because he couldn't even walk effectively on a nature hike that he then realized, trying to hobble back to the car and barely could make it because he was so overweight. He said, "You know what? This is all making sense."
Yeah.
He had to come to that point himself. People could have told him all day, but once he was in this situation himself, that awareness. So it's not that advice and comments don't help, but they might just pave the way for the ultimate harvest, which is self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you always, because it's the root level, and don't let me put words in your mouth here, but it seems like you start with identity always, and then move from that into more of the external factors, whether that's the job or relationships, things like that.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is, I think that most of us start with identity. And why? Because that's why I love what you're doing, Ted, but most of us are stuck with our own journey first. We can't think outside ourselves. This is why kids are very selfish. They're not even thinking about the kid next to them, young toddlers, most of the time. So once we understand our own identity journey, then we begin to say, you know what? Wow, what's my purpose now? See, now I'm getting healthy. What's my purpose for others? How can I serve others? And we become other-centered. And then most of the time we move from identity to purpose. And then we say, you know what? Now I know who I am. Now I know why I'm here. And guess what? I'm in the wrong job.
Yeah.
Because at 18 or 16 or 22, we don't often have the clarity to say, this is the long-time calling that I have. We're still focused on, mom and dad are telling me to do this, or this makes more money. So usually we move from identity to purpose to context.
Okay. Yeah, so being other-centered helps us to shed some of that weight, some of that identity weight. And so that kind of leads into your next step in the process, stay lean. It leads into a different thought, but the lean part fits. But stay lean by ignoring conventional thinking. And I think the question that stimulated me was the essence of being unconventional. What is there beyond being true to yourself and following through?
Sure. Well, I mean, if anybody's for education, it's me. I have a master's and doctorate degree, but you know what? I'm not jumping on board and saying to my kids, you absolutely have to go to college. I mean, that is the step that you need to do. Why? Because I'm not anti-education, but conventional wisdom says go rack up tens and tens and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in your education so that you can go earn, a fraction of that. I'm saying, whoa, hold on. Let's reconsider this. Why don't we take education based on the trajectory of where we're going to focus on? Sure, we want to be well-rounded people, but look, when you can take courses online free, not for credit, but from some of the finest institutions in the world, and still get the syllabus, still get the content, there's something to be said there. And so I'm not against education. I'm for it, but I'm just saying that that's one example of conventional wisdom. The other thing is people say to me, "Oh, you're doing laps around a lot of other businesses. You must have this huge office. You must have this huge building and tons of staff." And I say, hold on. I choose not to have an office. I choose not to have a building. I choose not to have a staff. And so it's very unconventional wisdom. But I have freelancers. I have independent contractors. I choose not to have an office because to me it doesn't make sense. One of the main values I have is freedom. And I feel like I left an office at 12 years. The last thing I need to do is now go locate and be present and say, okay, creativity, let's happen now between 9 and 5. Creativity to me is much more fluid, much more organic, and it doesn't always happen when I tell it to.
Sure. So do you have a process that you use to be intentionally unconventional?
Yeah, I really think it goes back to my opus and that document, and that's really what the Deeper Path book is all about. But one of the things I do is I realize that small choices really will affect the long-term design. So, for instance, when I went from day job to dream job, almost immediately I thought, you know what, I probably need an office. And sure enough, a guy said, oh, we have an opening. And if I would have taken that contract, it would have changed my business. Number one, I would have had stress because now I have a monthly office I need to furnish, rent, phone, you name it. Now I need to show up. Now I need to drive there. I mean, that would have immediately changed the whole dynamic. Now there's pressure. Now you got to take clients that aren't the best, but they're good clients just so you can make payments. So all I'm saying, Ted, is that before I make the conventional choices, I stop and say, why? Why do you need an office? Why do you need staff? Why do you need a mailing zip code? The funniest thing is I worried, what if I tell my clients, I have a P.O. box? Now I tell them and I chuckle. I laugh. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's not a form of embarrassment. I think it's a form of, lifestyle design. This is a career and a lifestyle that are integrated rather than I have my personal life and professional life.
Yeah. No, that's good. My guest here is Kary Oberbrunner. He is the author of Day Job to Dream Job. And so I want to move into a new step here.
Yeah, and I got about 3 more minutes because my lifestyle design is to pick up the kids from school.
That's great. All right, do you have time for one more question?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I got about 3 more minutes.
All righty. So the next step that I wanted to cover was carve out a niche and get noticed in a noisy world.
Yeah.
What do you consider the components of the niche?
Yeah. So the niche number one has to be something that you intuitively see. In other words, my wife and I can each walk into a room and she'll see things that need to be fixed. She'll see obstacles that I don't even see. That's because she's created uniquely from me. And so number one, I call it the snag. The snag that you see, pay attention to that. If you walk into a room and you see, oh wow, we could organize this room better and we could design it and there could be a space that would be more effective and efficient. Guess what? You probably have a niche or a niche that says interior design might be in your future.
Gotcha.
So what I talk about, number one, is a snag. What's the snags around you? Pay attention to those because those are in your awareness for a reason. Number two, what's the solution for those snags? Many times it's too easy for us. So we're not aware of our own guru status. And I'll give a quick example, Ted. People ask me for years, well, how do you write books? How do you write books? And I thought, oh, that's easy. I mean, you just do this, and this. Well, guess what? It's not just this, and this for other people. They ask for a reason because they're not aware of it. Many times your listeners have a guru skill, but it's too easy for them. So I tell people, what if at least 3 people asked you how to do something? And when at least 3 people have asked you how to do something, number one, they perceive that you're an expert. Otherwise, they won't ask you. And number two, there's a need for your skill. That's why they're asking. And so that's a big thing right away. That could be a niche that you have a skill in an area that has a need, but it's too easy. It's too close to you. That's why you don't see it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for sharing with us today. I think your work is highly relevant to sustainability. We'll let you get on to your kids. But again, today our guest has been Kary Oberbrunner. He is the author of Day Job to Dream Job, and he helps people find better fits in their job and in their lives. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Kary.
Ted. Thank you, Ted, for all you're doing, and keep it up, man.
Yep. Take care.
Take care.
So that pretty much finishes up our time here. And we have at least another interview's worth of material for Day Job to Dream Job, but we'll have to see if Kary will come back and join us again sometime. But thank you for joining us today, and be involved in the community. And the more people are involved in community, the more sustainable it will be. Thank you for joining us today.